what's going on, everybody? Welcome back here to another weather forecast, my friends. My name is Andrew Heischman. Here for today, we got ourselves a bit of a discussion that we need to talk about here. We got some severe weather coming up, not only for this week, but also next week. It looks like we are starting to get a lot of signals kind of pointing towards a bit of severe weather for the Central Plains, the Midwest, possibly the Ohio Valley. So we'll get into that in the later portion of the video. But in the beginning, we're going to go over current conditions, and we'll dive into Storm Prediction Center, WPC outlooks, just to kind of look at everything. We might even do some Climate Prediction Center outlooks in this video here as well. So we'll just kind of compact a whole bunch of information here for you guys, with the weather. Just what you guys, need to look out for over the next couple of days and even the next couple of weeks. Now, I've been working on my hurricane forecast video. I hope to have that out very soon for you guys. I'll let you guys know whenever I do, and I'm sure you guys will see it. So if you haven't already, consider leaving a like, hitting that subscribe button, and turn on those notifications. That way you'll get notified whenever we do. Now, anyways, folks, we'll take a look at the satellite here this morning. We got ourselves a little bit of stuff going on here. We do have a low area of low pressure up here across the northeast, driving a lot of rain, driving a lot of clouds up across the region here. So that's kind of what's going on out there. Nothing really too big. Now, we really need to focus on the south within the next couple of days here, because what's essentially going to be going on here is we're going to get an area of low pressure developing kind of across the areas of the deep south, towards the Gulf. And this is going to allow for a lot of moisture, a lot of instability, and fuel for these storms to really drive its way into the country. So we're going to definitely need to be weather aware across the south for the next couple of days. I mean, as we're getting ready to see here, the Storm Prediction Center actually does have 3 days worth of severe weather coming up. Then that pattern is going to shift from the south, going back up to the northwest, towards the Central Plains, the Midwest, with next week, as it does look like we have a signal that we could see a lot of severe weather out there. A lot of models are kind of hinting towards a good amount of instability, but yeah, we'll get to that here in a little bit. But anyways, as of this morning, we have a bit of storm activity here towards the Gulf in the south. We're going to have a lot more storms today here as we're getting ready to get into. Across the northeast here, once again, a little bit of rain, a little bit of cloud cover, a lot of overcast skies out here. The central U.S. actually looks pretty good. Really not a whole lot going on. It's relatively clear out there in the plains in the Midwest for the most part. We do have some high pressure blocking the Pacific Southwest here. So, once again, it's pretty normal. We have a bit of a ridge out there. It's pretty dry. Just really not a lot going on. Now, the Pacific Northwest, we do have a little bit of cloud cover and a little bit of precipitation going on out there, but really nothing too big overall. So let's go ahead and hop our way over to the Storm Prediction Center outlook, and let's see what the thunderstorm activity could look like for the next couple of days. Alrighty, everybody, hopping on over here to the Storm Prediction Center's outlook here for today, being May 9th. We do have ourselves a bit of a risk for severe weather in the south, like we've been talking about here. So yeah, it's really mostly going to be the south for today. That's going to be in the threat for severe weather. This includes a little bit of the mid-Atlantic towards like Virginia, a little bits of like southern Maryland will be included. Just a little bit of severe weather potential. But the main concerns for today are going to be across the yellow areas. That's actually the level 2 slight risk regions here. So the threat for severe weather goes from a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the worst and 1 being the lowest. We have a level 2 across the yellow. And you might be thinking, well, that's a pretty low risk. It is, but it's still a threat for damaging storms. So remember that. Regardless of what level you're in, there's still a risk for, potential severe weather and damaging storms. So just look at it that way. Don't brush it off. But yeah, the greatest concerns for severe weather today are going to be across areas like extreme northeastern North Carolina. We have areas like Elizabeth City, Kitty Hawk in there, as well as Windsor, which does work its way up here into southeastern Virginia, across Virginia Beach, Newport News, regions out there with that level 2 threat. Now, actually, Storm Prediction Center has added another slight risk here for Florida, which includes the areas of like Jacksonville, a lot of the Space Coast here, including Cape Canaveral, Orlando, almost up there towards Port St. Lucie, but not quite. It just goes all the way down to about, Vero Beach and some of those regions out there. So that's where the level 2 threat is. Now, remember, like I said, the level 1 here, that dark green, that is still a risk for severe weather, in which the general risk, the marginal risk here, the overall risk for severe weather starts in southern Louisiana, which does go through areas like southern Mississippi towards Gulfport, New Orleans, Louisiana, Mobile, Alabama. The level 1 threat does go in towards like Pensacola, Apalachicola, including areas like Tallahassee here in Florida. Southern Georgia is included there as well, including Dothan. This is actually Alabama, but does kind of go through some of those regions there. kind of uppercuts through Savannah, up towards Charleston, South Carolina, which does work its way up here towards Raleigh and whatnot. So that's kind of where the level 1 threat is for today. Now, they did actually add a tornado concern overall. We do have 2 areas where tornadic activity could be possible. So these areas here in the green, it represents a 2% chance probability of a tornado dropping within a 25-mile radius of a given area. So areas out there in extreme southeastern Louisiana here, just shy of New Orleans, southern Alabama out there towards Mobile. I'm not saying you guys will see a tornado because the odds are extremely low, but the risk and the ingredients for tornadic development will be in place across some of those regions there. But remember, it is a 2% chance. It can't rule out tornadic activity, but it's not this big outlook or a big severe weather concern or anything like that. So we're pretty good. But we'll just keep an eye out there for that. That does kind of work its way into the Panhandle as well, towards like the Panama City area. And then, of course, we have actually another area of 2% chance. This is actually on the eastern side of Florida, including a lot of the central part of the state here as well, which does include areas like Orlando, once again, Cape Canaveral, Daytona Beach, just south of Jacksonville, where that 2% chance for tornado is overall. So that is for today. In terms of damaging winds, we do have a 15% risk here across the yellow. That level 2 threat for both of those areas, once again, up in northeast North Carolina, southeast Virginia, along the eastern side of Florida, and then, of course, that 5% chance here across the brown here elsewhere. So like I mentioned, severe weather is going to be isolated to the deep south here for today overall. Now, in terms of hail, we do have ourselves a big 5% chance out there for hail across the deep south, including a lot of the Gulf Coast here, for areas of Louisiana, once again, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, up in the Carolinas here, including actually a 15% risk here on that northern level 2 threat for North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. We actually have a 15% chance out there for hail. Now, I didn't mention this, but in terms of damaging wind gusts, we do have the potential for gusty winds upwards of 60 miles per hour for today within those storms overall. And in terms of hail, we are going to be seeing the hail size ranging between mostly 1 to 2 inches here in diameter. So that is today's convective outlook as of this morning. Now, working our way into tomorrow. Tomorrow's threat's not going to be anything super crazy. First of all, we do actually have a marginal level 1 severe weather threat in Montana tomorrow for kind of the western and central part of the state here overall. No tornadoes expected, so that's certainly a good thing. However, we do have the concern for a little bit of gusty winds. That 5% chance for gusty winds is a concern. Perhaps maybe some gusts up to 60 miles an hour. And in terms of hail, we also do have a little hail risk here, a little bit further to the southwest here. Potential for a little bit of hail between 1 to 2 inches in diameter. Now, working our way down here to the south, Florida has another risk for severe weather here for tomorrow, being on Saturday. Also, a little bit of southern Georgia included here as well. Now, for tomorrow, tornado-wise, we do have a 2% chance for tornadoes up across the Panhandle and the Big Bend region here of Florida, where we cannot rule out an isolated tornado or two. This does include areas out by Tallahassee, as well as Apalachicola here overall. So, just a little bit of a heads up. Panama City there as well. Once again, it's not a guarantee that you guys are going to get a tornado. This is a very low percentage, 2% chance. So, for example, if you live in Panama City within a 25-mile radius around you, that is a 2% chance of a tornado dropping. So that's pretty low odds, but still, given the ingredients, we cannot rule out tornadic activity here for tomorrow. Now, in terms of damaging winds, we do have a much bigger area here for damaging wind gusts, which does extend through northern Florida, including parts of the Panhandle, and even central and south central Florida, with a 5% chance, once again, for the potential of gusty winds ranging between 60, worst case scenario, upwards of 65 miles an hour, within those storms could be possible. And then lastly, in terms of hail, same areas here, we have a little hail threat here, a 5% chance for hail, ranging between 1 to 2 inches in diameter. Now, working away into Sunday, we actually have another risk here for Sunday regarding severe weather here in the south. Includes portions of Mississippi, Alabama, out here by Florida, for the Panhandle, Big Bend region, and central Florida, once again, in the risk for severe weather on Sunday. There's no breakdown as of right now regarding, the exact percentage for tornadoes, hail, and damaging winds. But there's also another area for severe weather, once again, up north, up here actually in eastern Montana, here for Sunday across the eastern side, as well as including a little bit of western South Dakota and central and western North Dakota here with a little bit of a risk for severe weather. Now, you guys, if you're wondering what the light green represents, that just means that a couple thunderstorms can't be ruled out, but generally speaking, we're not expecting those to be severe. The severity starts at that green overall, that dark green overall. The light green just means a couple of booms of thunder can't be ruled out. So that's what the SPC outlook as of right now. At the current moment, there is no extended range forecast here from the SPC, but we're going to dive into the models here in a little bit to talk about next week, because like I mentioned, it does look the models are trending towards a concern regarding the potential for severe weather. Working its way kind of mid to late next week here across the plains in the Midwest, which we'll get into here in a moment. So let's go ahead and hop away over here to the WPC forecast regarding the potential for flooding, as flooding will be a concern in the next couple of days. Alrighty, everybody, sliding on over here into the WPC forecast regarding the flooding potential over the next couple of days. So for today, as you guys can see, we do have two areas where flooding could be a concern, or two regions here, including the deep south. So once again, we're getting that low that's kind of rolling through, driving a lot of moisture, precipitation, tons of thunderstorm activity. So flooding is going to be a concern in the south here. Now, it's not anything super excessive here regarding the flooding threat. So the flooding threat scale goes from a level 1 to a level 4. Unlike the severe weather scale that goes from 1 to 5, the flooding threat goes from 1 to 4. Don't ask me why, because I really don't know. But in terms of the risk, it is a level 1 threat here for flooding today, for both areas here, both in the south and up in the northeast here. So for today, if you're across the the light green here, there is going to be potential for a little bit of flooding, especially if you're prone to if you're in an area prone to flooding. Please monitor that closely. So portions of Louisiana, central southern Mississippi, central southern Alabama, a lot of the panhandle here of Florida, which actually does kind of go through the eastern side of Florida here as well. A little bit of south central and southern Georgia here, and a little bit of extreme South Carolina here with the flooding threat for today. Now, that's for the regional area in the southeast. Now, for up north, for New England, we actually do have ourselves a decent flooding threat for today, up across areas like eastern Pennsylvania, cutting through New Jersey, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and so on. So you guys are going to be in that level 1 threat here as well for today. Now, tomorrow, working our way into Saturday here, there's really not much of a difference going on. Once again, a bit of a concern for some of those southern states down there towards Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. And once again, a little bit of a concern for flooding up in the upper portion of the northeast for Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Then we work our way into Sunday. Now, something interesting on Sunday happens is actually we have a level 2 threat here for flooding. So flooding is going to be a little bit more of a concern on Sunday here, up across the Big Bend portion here of Florida, including portions of the Panhandle, the northern side of Florida here. Does work its way up here into a little bit of southeastern Alabama, central and southern Georgia here, including areas out there by like Macon. You guys are in that level 2 threat here, going into Florida towards like Panama City, Apalachicola, Tallahassee, Jacksonville. So you guys are in that level 2 threat here regarding flooding for Sunday. So there is going to be that concern regarding the potential for flooding overall. So just keep an eye on it. Now, the yellow means that that's at least a 15% chance of flooding within a 25-mile radius of your location, while the green shows at least a 5% chance. So, so that level 2 threat here across the yellow, that's kind of the main area here where we're talking flooding over the next couple of days. I figured I'd let you guys know. Alrighty, guys, so now we're hopping our way over here into the models, my friends, here. We're going to start off here with the American GFS model run, which, if you don't know, it's the long-range American model here. So we're going to take a look first at the instability or the fuel for storms. Now, we're going to start off over the next couple of days, then we'll work our way into next week, like I was mentioning. For the mid to late portion of next week, models have been kind of in agreement here. Both the Euro, GFS over the last couple of days have been kind of agreeing on activity, potentially sparking across the plains, the Midwest, and once again, potentially the Ohio Valley here overall. So taking a look at the instability or the fuel for storms, you can see a lot of that just kind of lingers across the deep south over the next couple of days here, which is leading us to that thunderstorm concern in the south and even a little bit of severe weather being a concern here as well. So then we work our way further down in time here for next Monday and Tuesday. You can see here for actually late Tuesday, we do build in a pretty good amount of instability here across portions of the Ohio Valley here. We're talking instability values here relatively relatively low, nothing super excessive. And when overlaying the lower level winds, there's really not much wind shear going on here, so nothing really big, nothing tornadic, nothing at least significant expected to occur. Mid-level winds are fairly weak here as well here for Tuesday overall. So then we work our way over here into Wednesday. You can kind of see we start to build in a little bit more instability towards the plains in the Midwest here for mid next week here for Wednesday. And at this point in time, we have a little bit of a, I wouldn't say strong, but, kind of a mildish, moderate jet stream here in the southern U.S. in general. But, once again, probably still really nothing super crazy going on. We do have a trough, though, that works its way across the southwestern United States here for Wednesday, potentially working its way into Thursday. As you can see, increasing the wind shear across the plains in the Midwest here. And when hopping back to the instability here overall, you could definitely see that we do have a bit of fuel for those storms out there for kind of late Wednesday going into Thursday overall. We do build in a pretty decent amount of instability potentially here across, the Ohio Valley, the Midwest here for Friday. Now, we can't take this with a grain of salt. We can't really take this, approximately for what it is, because it still is a little early. Models ain't perfect after all. This is also just one run. So, but I do want to mention, though, that the models have been consistent on this here for a while, kind of really showing a lot of that fuel, a lot of that instability building into those regions here. Another thing I do want to look at here is our dew points here. Our surface dew points are very important for thunderstorm development here, and we typically look for those dew points here in the 60s and 70s. It supplies a lot of good moisture to those storms here. A lot of that warm and lower levels, lower level warm and moisture-filled air essentially is really good for those storms. But we would typically measure that in our dew points here. And you can see here for late Tuesday, we have a really good amount of moisture, being advected north here. Dew points well into the 60s here, which is definitely pretty good. That moisture does tend to deepen as we work our way into Thursday, according to the GFS here overall. Dew points actually kind of working their way potentially up into the 70s. Once again, taking it precisely at this point is still shouldn't be done because it still is several days out. But just kind of getting an example here from the GFS of what the environment could look like here. Then working our way into Friday, you can see Friday, kind of the later portion of next week, it looks like we really pull in a lot of moisture. You guys are definitely going to notice it getting quite muggy across a lot of these regions here in the Midwest, the Ohio Valley. So for next week, you guys are going to notice that temperatures will likely be a little bit more warmer than typical, as well as more humid. So that is something that I do want to mention here as well. But, generally speaking, that's kind of that. There is another composite or another parameter that I like to use called supercell composite here. It just kind of, mixes in those ingredients, just kind of showing you where, the best wind shear to instability ratio and, some other parameters kind of is. And you could see out there for Wednesday, some areas in the southern plains, the lower Midwest here could see some storm activity, perhaps severe, which we'll have to monitor. Once again, SPC does not have anything as of right now, which if they do, I will let you know. Going into Thursday, you can see we have a little bit of composites really kind of starting to indicate themselves here, showing that potential out there for maybe some strong to perhaps severe storms here. And then for Friday, you can see that kind of continues here to the east. And anything past this is just a little bit too far out. This is about a week out at that point. So anyways, folks, well, I just wanted to go ahead and kind of do a overall breakdown here for you guys. If y'all did enjoy it, consider leaving a like and hitting that subscribe button. It'll be greatly appreciated. Once again, I really do appreciate y'all. Real quickly, looking here at the Euro model with the instability and stuff, it's pretty much the same thing overall. You can see here for Tuesday we start to build in that instability. Once again, not a whole lot, which GFS also picked up on overall, and just kind of goes on from there. Wednesday building up some more instability towards the plains, and then that just kind of works its way up here into Thursday. So both of the models, Euro and the GFS, the European model and the American model, are kind of in somewhat of agreement, not in terms of exactly how much instability there's going to be, but just in generally saying that there is going to be fuel for these storms, in which, like I said, the moisture indicators as well is pretty strong too, from, also the Euro as well. You can see the European model also supports, a lot of rich dew points here, a lot of rich moisture in the lower levels, which could be really good for storms to initiate essentially. So a lot of instability, a lot of moisture. We'll have to see about wind shear and how these these jet streams kind of align up here over the next week. But we'll keep you guys posted and everything. But all right, everybody. Well, that's a complete breakdown of kind of what we can expect over the next couple of days. Once again, if you did enjoy it, consider leaving a like and hitting that subscribe button. It'll be greatly appreciated. Go ahead and share this to your friends and family. I will greatly appreciate it. And all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, my friends. See ya later on.